The first kind of framework that I would offer up that's been very helpful in like assessing my teams and where we are in the scale is this tech acceptance framework, which starts with outright hostility. I don't want to use this. I won't use this. I think this is bad. To skepticism, which is like, I'm open to using this. I think it's going to suck. Like the last time I tried 2 years ago, it sucked, but fine. To like converted, where you're like, I believe. I'm a believer. I know that this will work, and sometimes I remember to use it, and I've got a couple of systems down. To like rewired. And when you're rewired, you just think of AI first. Whenever a new job comes across your desk or whenever your role expands, your first thought is just like, how do I use AI to organize this system?
Welcome to LaunchPod, the show from LogRocket where we sit down with top product and digital leaders. Our guest today is Laura Burkhauser, CEO of Descript, the video editor that's been AI native long before AI native was something you put in a pitch deck. Laura's route to the CEO seat started as a customer. She loved the product enough to knock on founder Andrew Mason's door and ask to work on it. She joined to lead product, but only 3 years later, she succeeded the well-known founder and is running the company. Today, Laura's here to talk about both sides of that journey, finding peers and mentors when you're suddenly the most senior person in any room and driving AI adoption across an org already known for AI and its product. In this episode, Laura shares her tech acceptance framework, the 4 stages from outright hostility to rewired, and how to figure out where your team actually sits. Why telling ICPMs that AI means 2x productivity just sounds like they're doing twice the work, and her Find the Dream framework that drives actual real buy-in. How Laura built Descript's AI philosophy around one principle: struggle with your art, not with your tools. And why she doesn't want anyone one-shotting their videos. Plus, the trap most companies are falling into right now: AI systems that walk out the door when the person who built them leaves, and how to make progress durable across your org. So here's our episode with Laura Burkhauser. All right, Laura, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Jeff. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am super stoked about this because we have been using Descript for, I think, pretty much the entire life of all of our podcasts for all the video stuff. Love the product. Yeah, well, we love the product. So, thanks for coming on, but also thanks to you and the team for making a great product there.
I love to hear that. And yeah, I mean, I always tell people I was a Descript customer well before I was the CEO and kind of had the same experience, like loved the product so much that I knocked on Andrew's door and asked if I could work on it with him.
So that's actually, I could go on and on about products I like and Descript being one of them. But, the thing I want to kind of ask you about goes into actually hits on Andrew there. Because basically you've had a rapidly ascending career. You've grown really quickly and progressed really fast. And I think that's something that people see across the board. Maybe, speed's always different across people, but we all run into similar problems at some point where you kind of hit a point where you need mentorship, you need community, you need all that. So I want to dig into that. And then also like across the country, as we've been kind of hosting events and meeting with product leaders, the big thing that hits for leaders is AI adoption and how you are moving your teams forward with this. And I think you have great frameworks there. But maybe first we can just kind of go, before Descript, how did you get to where you are? What does that look like?
It's nice to hear one's career described as a rapid ascent. It's a nice way to see things, 20 years into a career. I think like when you're in the middle of it, it certainly doesn't feel like you're on a straight path, rapid ascent. It's been serpentine, I think, for me. And I think that the first really big thing that I had to learn is just like, how do I want to spend my days? What excites me? What's my impact equation? And a lot of my 20s was figuring that out. And then really, as I got into my 30s, it became like, okay, here I am. I'm definitely a product manager. That's the thing that I want to do. I want to build products on the internet. And then it became about like, what's the right company for me? How do I succeed? How do I get better in my craft? How do I get better in my leadership? So 20s was just sort of like, what the hell am I doing with my life? 30s is like, how do I build a career in this thing that I've decided like kind of works for me? And we'll see what the next chapter holds for me. I don't know.
I think almost everything that looks like a rapid ascent or overnight success, I forget the soccer player who said it. One of the Premier League kind of level people put it. Yeah, it took decades of hard work and preparation to be an overnight success. But, in retrospect, we can give you the props you deserve here. I mean, I had a similar experience where, you kind of move quickly and you find yourself in a role that maybe there's not the support system or something different about it where, maybe you don't perform as well as you want. I had that in a past role where I kind of hit one of my first director roles. And it was like, yeah, I know, as a kid, you're like, I know everything And then you
Yeah.
get in and you're like, it's not going well. Oh no. And I think we share a similar experience here.
Yeah. So when I got out of business school, first of all, I was like, do I want to work in big tech or not? I decided not. I really liked the way that working at a startup felt. And so I went and I worked at this startup again where I was a customer. It was called Le Tote, and they did subscription fashion. And I did like 3 years there and really learned the hell out of the subscription fashion business and learned how to be a really great product manager. And because it was growing quickly, I then became like a people manager. And I was a pretty great product manager, pretty much like out of the box, just kind of self-taught. And I was a pretty good people manager, just straight right out of the box, like self-taught. A lot of being a good people manager is just authentically caring about your team and also being good at your craft. And so like that went really well. Then I went and I started working at Rent the Runway. And I thought that this was going to be my dream job because it was like, okay, this is still fashion subscription, this thing that I was really loving. And I got this director title, which was super shiny to me at the time. I was like, oh God, I'm like a product director at like this awesome company, just a couple of years out of B school, just a couple of years into like really doing the product manager job. Like I'm killing it. And I went there and I had one of those moments. There's like a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And like that was my what got you here won't get you there moment. I'm like, I'm an awesome product manager. I'm a really good people manager. Why am I not a good product director? And why am I not getting better faster? And the answer to the second question is I had done this thing that I think can happen to you if your career is moving really quickly, which is that I very quickly became one of the most senior product people at Rent the Runway without a lot of peers in the product world to show me. Like I was reporting into a CTO, amazing guy, but came up out of engineering, right? So I'm now like the terminal product level at the company at the time. So I have no one to really learn the craft of being a product director from. And I'm also at an East Coast tech company where in the water, there's not kind of like this all around knowledge in the company about like what product does at higher and higher levels. And so there was no one to kind of tell me like, this is what a product director does. This is how you think about resource allocation. This is how you think about influencing the business strategy. This is how you start thinking about working on the business and not just working in the business. This is how you work with executives. Like all of these things that are very different than like, here's how you think of a roadmap, own that roadmap and execute the hell out of it and like train junior PMs to do a good job, right? It's just like a fundamentally different job. And I didn't have the support in company that I needed. And I think if I were like talking to Laura at that time and trying to advise her, I'd say like, it's time to look outward. Your peers aren't going to be here. You need to go find them elsewhere if you're going to keep learning at the rate that you want to learn. I didn't do that. And so instead what I did is I realized like, I got to go. Like I have to go. I've been avoiding big tech my whole life. But if I want to actually learn how to do the product director role, I need to go to big tech where there are a bunch of different product directors. I need to see what excellence looks like in action. And then I can kind of like figure out what this looks like for me. Well, okay, now fast forward. This is how like one must always like don't make the same mistake twice. I found myself, last August in this role where I'm literally the terminal position at the company and can't kind of look around and be like, how do I like, am I doing a good job? Am I good at being? I don't know. And so it's been critical for me in this moment to reach out and join a lot of communities, to find peers, and not just any peers, but to find peers who inspire me, to find like mentors and heroes and peers that I can kind of like learn from and shape myself around, either because we have a direct relationship or because they're very good at kind of being a thought leader and I like resonate with what they write and I can kind of absorb what they're talking about. So, and that is hard to do in a world of like lunacy in the CEO influencer space. I also think this is why like you have so many CEO lunatics. It's like an epidemic because it's a lonely job. So you're like, okay, I got to look outward. I got to like find out how to do this job well. But if all you're doing is going on like Twitter/X or like LinkedIn and like reading your feed to learn how to be a founder CEO, God help you. Because like there is not a position extreme enough that I could take satirically that hasn't been expressed like earnestly
Well, we
online.
always joke about like the theater of AI happening on LinkedIn and maybe some other, influencers who have other platforms. But I think the metaphor applies to almost anything where any kind of algorithmically driven content distribution is never going to skew towards moderate, really intelligent, nuanced arguments. It's always going to be well, I got rid of 40 marketers with my, with this skill, or here's why this industry is going to vaporize in the next 3.5 minutes. Uh,
Yeah.
but like it's the pace has to keep going, man. It used to be a year, but that's too slow. It's 3.5 minutes now. That's it. That's the cycle. I saw like career wise coming up. I, moved very quickly through several roles. And then I feel like director is one of those roles. You're going to trip on director if you're not careful. That's where things
Yeah.
flip. And that book is the perfect one to reference there. When you're at a certain seniority level, you don't have peers in your company. You can't. Like you
Yeah.
can have, and we do a big product leader dinner set around the country where it's all invite only. We go through and we deeply vet everyone. And it's been really popular because people come back and cite like, nowhere else can you go where it's my peers. And the big thing we pitch when we're there is, your boss is in here. Like we're talking about AI adoption and how people are fried and can't keep up. And like, you're not going to go tell your CEO this, right? Like you're going to get fired. Don't, and
Yeah,
don't,
you better not. You tell me you love AI. You tell me you go home and you build AI apps for your kids.
that's what you dream about when you get home and you understand everything. You've read every post by every influencer in the world.
Yeah, there's really an emotional component to that too. I think like that's one of the things that's tough is like for me, one of the reasons I loved being, this is very much a what got you here won't get you there. One of the reasons I loved being an ICPM, like maybe my favorite job that I've ever had, is like I never played sports in high school, really more of a theater kid, if you can't tell. But when I was working with like engineers and designers and we were shipping things, I'm like, this must be how it feels to play sports. Like where you're just like you're a team, you're all good at different things. You're like leaving it all in the field. You're working hard every day. You're shipping together. You're winning together. You're pouring Gatorade on each other. Like it just like feels good. This sense of belonging and community that happens when you build with other people. And like you definitely like as the coach, you feel like pride, but you're not. It's not the same. Like you weren't on the field, and you're not in the community in the same way. And so I think there's like an emotional kind of growing up that needs to happen as well. So that was tough for me.
I think it's an important conversation to have publicly because this is one of those areas, and maybe it's changing a little bit, but I feel like this is one of those things people will talk about behind closed doors. They'll say it privately to, hey, what helped me is this, but it's rare to have someone kind of come out and just say this, but you need this, right? You don't need to succeed on your own. It's gonna be really, really hard. You should have people around you. Just when you're really, really junior, those people around you can be at your company. You grow that the ring needs to grow as well, I guess, or the circle needs to
Yeah.
grow. As someone who kind of comes from a product background in a the chief executive role, I have to imagine the pressure is there of like you need to adopt these tools. The magic of AI. Whether we can joke about the theater of AI on LinkedIn and all the BS that surrounds it and everything like that, and it is a lot of BS, but it is a real tool. It's going to have real benefits. It already has for a lot of companies. How have you looked at that end of it from a reality standpoint? You've got the weapons now to do this. You've networked with peers. You've grown as a leader, but you still have to go and bring in the benefits that were being promised from all these frontier models and capabilities. But you can't take forever to do it, even though some of these things are probably a little bit longer term to understand. How have you looked at this problem internally?
Well, I think the first thing I'd say is like, I love AI. I love building with AI. And that's important because I think there's like you said, it feels hard to have a nuanced opinion about AI right now because like first of all no one's going to watch this episode if I I'm just like it's good for some things and not others. Sorry. Unfortunately, I have a nuanced opinion about AI that is neither stop AI nor I'm going to fire everyone in my company and we're just going to have self-learning agents running every single function. I don't believe in either of those things. Wow, what a surprise. But I think like I love AI and I've loved AI. I mean, like Descript has been an AI product since infancy, right? The whole idea, the original idea of Descript is that you can edit video just like you edit a doc. And so that means like you're editing text to edit the video. It also means it's collaborative. Everyone can come in and edit at the same time. And so when LLMs came out, first of all, we kind of got multimodal editing for free. Because if you think about video as a document, what are LLMs incredibly good at doing? They're really good at editing text. And guess what? When you edit text, you edit the video. So that was like our next big breakthrough with like buttons like, edit for clarity or removing retakes really like gets you a lot of wonderful editing buttons that feel really deterministic to customers for free provided by LLMs. And then we immediately started working on Underlord, your AI editing companion slash Underlord, servant. And I like laugh about servant, but I think like when we created Underlord, we created a Descript, like I created in the product team a couple of like grounding beliefs about AI and the way that we should work with it that I think have aged like wine, if I say so myself. And I mean, we'll see, TBD. But so far, in a world of a lot of change, and the first is that like my big headline that I would put on a sign is struggle with your art, not with your tools. The purpose of AI should be to take the struggle out of the tools that you use and not out of you thinking about what the hell you want to say, thinking about what your vision is visually for the thing that you're creating, finding your voice, your distinct voice, which is a thing that takes every human, most humans, except for like wunderkind writers, it takes most humans decades to do. If you ever find, if you're lucky enough to have a unique voice, it'll probably take you 30 years to find out what it is. And so all of these things, this is your art. And guess what? You're going to struggle with it. Like the act of creation is a difficult process. But when you get it, the act of cutting the tape in your timeline should not be the thing that's causing you to curse late into the evening, right? And so I think like thinking about AI as a way of easing the friction in tool use and not of replacing human creativity is one of the ways that we kind of grounded Underlord from the very beginning. Another way that I think like we've been pretty disciplined from the beginning is we're excited about the idea of, chatting with an agent. And I actually like believe that voice is the future here and that you're going to want to direct Underlord to just do things for you. Some of those things will be high level, like, can you make this look a little bit creepier? And some of them will be low level, like after you do that initial, can this look creepier? Like, hey, no, you need to turn the green sublight up a little bit. Can you do that? Like, so some of these things you're going to want to express through text, but that humans are still going to need a lot of knobs and dials. You're going to want to put your hands in the clay to get things to be perfect. And that's where it's like, yes, you want to make it easier to work with your tools, but this obsession we have with one-shotting things, I think is not our vision. I don't think that you should want to one-shot video editing, right? Like it's an iterative process where part of what you're building then teaches you what your vision actually is. And iterating is actually critical to finding that voice and that aesthetic. And so like, I want to make it really easy to iterate, but like, I don't think you should just one shot and post, like probably.
Right. Part of the point is that you're making something that reflects you. And if it's just a one shot through, Underlord or whatever, or whoever, not even Descript necessarily, everyone's thing kind of starts to be the same. If it's all based on the same average, and sure, maybe we can give it a ton of context first, but like you kind of have the same seed stuff. And that's where I think a lot of the stuff can enhance. It can help you prioritize. It can help you parse. It can help you, right? Like the cutting, the nuance, you want to cut all the ands and uhs. At some point though, it does go too far. I think that's a really good, back to nuanced opinion. The art is human intrinsically, and you can't remove yourself all the way or else like,
that's right. And
who no one's gonna listen.
AI is definitionally a derivative technology, right? That's how it works, is by taking, a mean of things that everyone, like a statistical average of what is most likely to happen next, which is like the nature of, like, that is what derivative means literally. And so without a lot of input from you, without a vision, without a director who matters, you're going to get derivative content. Now, maybe derivative content is okay for some use cases, which is why I think like a lot of media is going to get swallowed up by one-shotting, because like a lot of media kind of like is slop by nature. But all of the media that matters, I think like, yep, we'll use different tools. Yep, creating good stuff is still going to be hard as hell, but for different reasons. And hopefully it makes it easier for more people. Like what always gets me excited about Descript is like 15 years ago, I just couldn't make a video. Like maybe if I really tried hard and I took a class, like, but you'd never get to hear my story, right? And I think that's true of a lot of people who use Descript. We would just never get to hear their story because they're never going to learn those tools. And what I like about AI is the democratization aspect of it. That like, if you have a vision, you don't need to know what a layer is, right? If you have a vision and you have patience, like you can get to something and you can start to develop as an artistic person, as a creative person, as a storyteller in a way that you maybe never could have before. And that really excites me.
So one thing I want to add on to that is just looking at our journey on media creation. Like, we've always been a very media first company. We've always been very focused on education and on how do we create things that are going to help people learn and do their jobs there, because I think that's a better branding mechanism and way to build brand than to just have an army of SDRs call until people die. Don't get me wrong, we have some SDRs, don't get me wrong, and they're fantastic. But this is we found this is a much more durable way is education. But we actually did video for a while on some of our kind of stuff we did. And we actually had to stop because it was too expensive for the pro level, all the editing. And Descript allowed us to do it again because we could have great, really, really talented technical people and people who knew the subject matter. They could get in and they could do it themselves. And that's where the value lay. It wasn't in one-shotting a video. It allowed the people who were the experts to just do the thing. And we never could have done it otherwise. And I think that goes forward for other uses of AI as well. When I've tried to one-shot writing, it's garbage. When I sit down and do the process, but it synthesize my thoughts, I move faster. So that takes us to like, are you an AI native company? And whatever the hell that means. But there is reality. There are ways we can be using this to help people move faster and get down to the things they're really, really great at and do more of those things. I mean, I'd love to dig into how you guys are doing it there because you've helped us do it here.
I think that how confident I feel that Descript is on the cutting edge depends on who I talk to, right? When you live in San Francisco, you never feel AI native enough. And I think like the other thing is like we're still trying to figure this out, right? And some of it's ideological. And so I think like if you're honest with yourself, most of us are still in experimentation mode. So first, like the first kind of framework that I would offer up that's been very helpful in like assessing my teams and like assessing where we are in the scale is like this tech acceptance framework, which starts with outright hostility. Like, I don't want to use this. I won't use this. I think this is bad. To skepticism, which is like, I'm open to using this. I think it's going to suck. Like the last time I tried 2 years ago, it sucked. Like, but fine, you're making me like, oh, all right. Like I will skeptically try. To like converted where you're like, look, I believe, I'm a believer. I know that this will work. And sometimes I remember to use it. And I've got a couple of systems down. To like rewired. And when you're rewired, you just think of AI first. Whenever a new job comes across your desk or whenever your role expands, your first thought is just like, how do I use AI to organize this system? And so at Descript, like starting last year when we had like that hackathon, I think that now everyone considers best practice where you give everyone a hackathon and you say, we're going to build with AI. We're going to rebuild like a system that you're working on with AI. We did that a year ago. And that was because we didn't have too many outright hostile people, right? We're in SF and we've been an AI company since the beginning. If you have a problem with AI, you probably don't self-select into being a Descript employee. But we had a bunch of people in skeptical and the majority of us were in like converted but not rewired. And there, I think what was really useful was to like step back and have people think about their function and think about the systems that like are part of their function. So like in the people function, you have like recruiting as a system, you have like performance and comp is a system, like benefits is a system, answering questions that employees have about like various things as a system. And you just think about like, what would it look like if I were rebuilding the company from the very beginning and I didn't have any employees? Like, what would it look like to build this on AI and to make AI the way that we do recruiting or to make AI the way that we do performance and comp? Now, I specifically picked people because it should make you, as I say, have AI do performance and comp. Some part of you should be like, oh, right? Like, ooh, that sounds kind of weird. Like, and that's where I get into this point of like, we're all in experimentation mode. Like, I think that we should be very open to reimagining, to asking the question of like, what would it look like to reimagine these systems if they were AI first? And I think, and to forbid people from answering that question with, we would buy a tool that says it's AI native. Like, you're not allowed to buy any tools. Like, how would you reorganize the manual work that you do, right? And with the contracts you already have, you use Greenhouse, great. Use Claude and the Greenhouse MCP. Like, no tool changes yet. How would you rebuild your workflow to be more automated or to be AI native? And I think at the time we were still thinking very human in the loop. And actually, like, I think human in the loop is going to endure for a really long time. But the latest hotness is like, what if you actually had an agent managing that system and they were like a self-learning agent? I have a lot of concerns there, but we're experimenting because the point is right now we should be experimenting with all of this stuff and seeing how far we should push it. But it's not clear to me that AI should be running all of these systems or should be the manager overlooking them, not just for ethical concerns and not just for quality concerns, but also for boring reasons like cost concerns, which I think like now a lot of CFOs are waking up and realizing what does it mean that the CEO just said we were all going to do AI native? Is this really going to be my bill every month? Because like our margin is gone, right? We're all kind of experimenting to find out like, what is a good candidate? Like, what's the framework for like, this is a really good candidate for like an AI native system that should be like self-running and self-learning. And like this stuff, no, human in the loop all the way, or like, let's just do it manually. The other thing that I think pitfall that I think a lot of that we fell into actually with SDR is like, don't automate a system that's not working. Automating a bad SDR strategy is just going to give you bad results that are much more expensive for you to get, right?
That's just very true across like almost everything with AI is I've found if you give it to a capable, person or system, you can make that capable person or system, you can magnify, right? It kind of magnifies everything. So you give it to, something working or in a way that makes sense, or you give it to a very capable person, they're going to get more effective.
I do think like you've gotten to one of the fundamental limitations to scaling AI within an organization right now, which is like right now where we are as a whole is like it's very much been let 1,000 flowers bloom, which is like give everyone AI and see who's using it well. And we see these like beacons of like, holy crap, this person is 10x or, 20x more productive than they've ever been. They're thriving. And then you're just like, can I take those best practices and like move them around the company? And it's like, not necessarily across functions, not necessarily across people. And also, if that person left, like none of that is durable. None of that endures. And I think this is both like a software problem with like Claude or whatever your AI stuff is, and also like an interesting organizational systems problem, which is like right now, if I bring in a fantastic head of product and she starts doing things like having product review, like setting up a good design review, like setting up these human processes. And then she's like, oh no, I have to go have a baby. Like I'm out for 5 months. Like those systems endure and those processes endure, not forever, but usually for long enough that like you can have, if she leaves and comes back, or if she leaves and you need to hire someone else, product review is going to take you like through most of that time. The way a lot of companies are building AI right now, if the employee who like created the AI system were to leave, like the AI system just leaves with them.
It's gone.
Because it's their own personal setup.
I think just recently, we've pushed everyone to get onto, team plans and all that and shared GitHubs. A lot of these things are working in the business right now, but you got to kind of take that and zoom it back a notch to make sure that it's durable. Or you're just building a lot of people who know what to do, and as soon as they're gone, so is your capability. How do you share, once you have those kind of, what is the term that everyone likes right now? AI pilled.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Once you have your AI pilled people, how do you make that, scale across the org so that people who aren't can learn it, but also when that, it's durable and just part of the DNA of the company now.
Yeah, and so like I think we did the hackathon stuff, which was I think a good first step. Then like as an org leader, as a head of product, I actually did an offsite that was all around it where we looked at all of the product systems. So discovery, prioritization, PRD writing, running experiments, creating analytics dashboards. We like listed them all out, and we basically created this 2x2 of like
I love a 2x2. People knock on them, but they're sometimes
everything
useful.
in the world can be turned into a 2x2. I believe that in my soul. I have yet to find a problem I can't 2x2, Jeff. But the first question we asked is just like, what do you hate doing right now? Like when you look at the last 4 weeks of work that you've done, what sucked? Like, what do you just wish you could do less of? And what do you wish you could do more of? And this is something like that I wish we did more when getting folks on board for AI is like, find the dream. Because like as a CEO, I know you're salivating at like 2x productivity. But like, you know what 2x productivity sounds like to me as like an ICPM? You're going to do 2 times the work that you're normally doing. And it's like, cool. I'm super stoked about your vision for like the future of AI in the workplace. Because it sounds like I'm just doing a lot more work. I also like, I will say I'm super uninspired. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm also super uninspired by this dream of like, in the future, AI will do all labor and humans won't need to labor. I'm like, I think labor is like a social good that connects us with other people. I love labor, but I love the idea of humans getting more choice about the kinds of labor they do, who they labor for. And I think people can get excited about that. And so we were thinking about getting people to be AI pilled, maybe have them separate their labor into like, I hate laboring on this stuff. And I wish I had more time to labor on this stuff. And it's like, okay, we've got our dream right there. We're going to use AI to try to fast forward our way through this stuff. Not all of it, 'cause some of it's like, sorry, a human does need to do that. That's the other part of the 2x2 is like, is AI like good at doing this yet? And so it's like, okay, let's take this stuff off our plate. Let's automate. Let's systematize. Let's like find a way to accelerate through this so that you can spend more time over here. And by the way, you might still be using AI, but instead of talking about AI to speed things up or AI to replace, here on the stuff you love doing, let's talk about using AI to enhance your ability to do that, to connect you more deeply with that, right? You wish you had more time to do long-term visioning? Great. Like, how do we use AI to help you with your long-term visioning? So that kind of stuff is how you start to craft the promise for your team about like, here's what AI is going to give us. Here's the promised land. Like, here's why we're doing this big push. So that's my framework for that.
I think we've done well over 100 episodes of this. That is a top 10, if not top 5 framework we've heard yet. Because I love that because it hits on the human element, which is often the problem because at heart, right? Like software's nice. We make software because we have to. Like it's the best way to solve a lot of problems. Software's not the goal. It's solving people's problems, and at heart, and something I think that you're seeing more events and stuff like that and live in-person things and more video too, because it feels more human to have a person there than not. And that distills down to like, what do you actually like doing? And then how can we use these tools to allow you to do more of that and spend more time on the things that bring you joy? It's the, what is it, Marie Kondo of work.
Yeah.
Laura, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. This is enlightening and joyful all at the same time.
Jeff, it was so great to talk. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Hopefully we can stay in touch. But yeah, I'll let you know when we're in San Francisco for another event. But yeah, great to have you on. Thank you so much.
Feature requests, product feedback.
Yeah.
We've done this. Like you have a direct line to me whenever you need me.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much. We will take advantage of that. Thank you, Laura. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Jeff.